Painting won't pay bills, they said, refusing to come to my shows. 5 years later, the Metropolitan Museum acquired my collection for $1.40 million. Thanksgiving dinner exploded when I pulled out my phone and showed them the email from the Met's director of contemporary art. The silence was so complete you could hear the gravy congealing. "This has to be fake," my sister Lauren finally whispered, her MBA brain struggling to process the number on the screen. "I'm Aria Mansfield, 27, and I just dropped a nuclear bomb on my family's Thanksgiving dinner. The same table where for 5 years they'd served my failures as appetizers and my worthless art degree as the main course of mockery. The Metropolitan Museum of Art," my father read slowly, his surgeon hands trembling slightly, "is pleased to confirm the acquisition of the complete Invisible Threads collection by Aria Mansfield for the sum of $1.4 million. That's impossible," my mother stammered, her realtor smile cracking. "You work at a coffee shop." "I worked at a coffee shop," I corrected. Past tense. Though I'll probably keep making Antonio's lattes. He was the only one who came to my shows. The shows. 5 years of exhibitions in cramped galleries, community centers, even a laundromat once. Shows my family had been too busy to attend. Too busy closing deals, performing surgeries, winning cases, earning real money. "We need wine," my brother James announced, Harvard law degree apparently not preparing him for this moment. "Lots of wine. But let me start at the beginning, when choosing art was my first unforgivable sin. 5 years ago, I'd sat at this same table, fresh out of art school, glowing with naive optimism. I'd just been accepted into a prestigious artist residency, unpaid, but with studio space and mentorship from established artists. Unpaid. My father had set down his fork like I'd announced I was joining a cult. "Aria, you're 22. It's time to get serious." "I am serious. This is an incredible opportunity. To waste more time finger painting?" Lauren had laughed. "Come on, Air. I can get you an entry-level position at Goldman. Real money. Real future. But I don't want to work at Goldman. I want to create." "Poverty," James had interjected. "Because that's what artists create. I see them all the time in pro bono cases. Evictions, bankruptcies. Some artists are successful," I'd argued weakly. "Some people win the lottery too," my mother had said, patting my hand condescendingly. "But we don't plan our lives around it. Maybe keep art as a hobby? Like your Aunt Carol's scrapbooking." They'd worn me down over dessert, each taking turns explaining why art was unrealistic, childish, a waste of my potential. By the time the pumpkin pie was served, they'd mapped out my entire life. MBA program, corporate job, marriage to someone equally practical, 2.5 children who'd never make the mistake of pursuing passion over profit. I'd left that dinner feeling hollow. But somewhere between my apartment and the next morning, something shifted. Spite, maybe. Or just the realization that I'd rather fail at something I loved than succeed at something that made me feel dead inside. I took the residency. "How could you be so irresponsible?" My father had raged when I told him. "I'm following my passion. Passion doesn't pay rent, Aria. When you're homeless, don't come crying to us." And I didn't. Not when I was eating ramen for the 3rd week straight. Not when I took the coffee shop job to afford supplies. Not when I painted in a studio so cold I could see my breath. My family made their position clear through their absence. 5 art shows in that first year. 0 family members in attendance. "Too busy," Lauren would text. "Big presentation. Surgery scheduled," from Dad. "Court case," from James. "Open house," from Mom. "But I'm sure it's nice." Only my grandfather came, before he passed. He'd sit in the corner of whatever cramped venue I'd managed to book, proud and present. He'd left me his war medals when he died. Everyone else thought it was junk. I saw inspiration. That's when Invisible Threads was born. A series exploring connection and disconnection, using mixed media, paint, metal, fabric from military uniforms. I incorporated my grandfather's medals, threading them through canvases that depicted the invisible bonds between people. Some threads were strong, painted in gold and silver. Others were frayed, barely there, done in ash and shadow. One piece, titled Sunday Dinners, showed a family table where some figures were fully realized while others were mere outlines, connected by threads that dissolved into nothing. "It's about presence," I'd explained to a critic at a small gallery opening. "How people can sit at the same table but be worlds apart." The critic had loved it, written a piece in Art Forum. That led to more reviews, more shows, better galleries. But still my family stayed away. Read about your little exhibition. James had said at Christmas 3 years ago. Cute that people are humoring you. Actually, I sold 3 pieces. For what, $50? Lauren had laughed. I made $50,000 in bonuses last quarter. It's not about the money. Everything's about money, my father had cut in. You'll learn that when you grow up. But the art world was starting to notice. Real collectors began arriving at my shows. The girl serving them lattes was creating work that made them think, feel, remember their own invisible threads. Your use of negative space is extraordinary, one collector had said. The way the missing figures are more present than the painted ones. That's the point, I'd replied. Sometimes absence speaks louder than presence. She'd bought 5 pieces. Then Miranda Chin walked into my life. The Miranda Chin, curator at the Met, though I didn't know that when she ordered her cappuccino. You're the artist, she'd said, recognizing me from my photo in a review. I've been following your work. We'd talked for hours. About art, about family, about the threads that bind and break us. She came to my next show, a solo exhibition at a respected Chelsea gallery. The centerpiece was Thanksgiving, a massive canvas showing a feast where some diners were gold-threaded and vibrant while others were mere shadows, their threads cut and drifting. I want to show this at the Met, she'd said simply. I'd nearly dropped my wine. What? Not just this piece. The whole collection. We're doing a contemporary exhibition on family and disconnection in modern America. Your work is exactly what we need. But I'm nobody. I work at a coffee shop. My family thinks I'm a failure. Your family is wrong. The negotiation had taken months. Lawyers, evaluations, insurance assessments. I'd told no one except Antonio, who'd covered all my shifts while I met with museum boards and authentication experts. $1.4 million. For paintings my family had called finger painting. For work created in freezing studios and hung in laundromats. For art born from their absence. Which brings us back to Thanksgiving. How long have you known? My mother asked, her voice small. The deal was finalized 6 months ago. The exhibition opens in January. 6 months. Lauren's face went through several shades of red. You've known for 6 months and didn't tell us? Like you didn't tell me about your promotions? Your bonuses? Your successes? I kept my voice level. Oh wait, you did. Every family dinner. While dismissing my work as a hobby. That's different. How? We were trying to help you be realistic, my father interjected. To protect you from disappointment. No, you were trying to validate your own choices by invalidating mine. There's a difference. James, ever the lawyer, tried a different approach. Aria, this is incredible. We should celebrate. As a family. Like we celebrated my first gallery show? My residency? My reviews in Art Forum? Silence. You don't even know what Art Forum is, do you? More silence. It's one of the most prestigious art publications in the world. But you never asked. Never Googled. Never cared. We cared, my mother protested. We worried. You mocked. There's a difference between concern and contempt. I pulled up my phone, scrolling through 5 years of text messages. Opening tonight, would love to see you. Big show this weekend, hope you can make it. Got a great review, thought you'd want to know. Too busy. Can't make it. Maybe next time. Do you know who did come? I asked. Antonio from the coffee shop. Mrs. Chun from the laundromat where I had my second show. The homeless veteran who cried when he saw how I'd used military elements. Strangers who became family while my family became strangers. That's not fair, Lauren said weakly. Fair. I laughed, but it wasn't funny. Fair would have been having my family support me even when they didn't understand. Fair would have been showing up even if you thought it was stupid. Fair would have been loving me more than you loved being right. We do love you, my father said stiffly. You love the version of me you wanted. The one with the MBA and the corporate job and the practical dreams. But that Aria doesn't exist. She never did. I stood up, suddenly exhausted. The Met exhibition opens January 15th. You're not invited to the opening gala. Aria, my mother gasped. We're your family. Family shows up, I said simply. Family supports dreams even when they don't understand them. Family doesn't need a $1.4 million validation to believe in someone they claim to love. So what? You're just cutting us off? James demanded. No. I'm just done pretending your absence doesn't matter. I'm done making excuses for why my family never comes to my shows. I'm done feeling guilty for succeeding in a way you didn't approve of. I grabbed my coat, then turned back. You know what the saddest part is? You could have been part of this journey. You could have watched me grow from terrible beginner to someone the Met wants to showcase. You could have seen the threads I was painting connect in real life. Instead, you chose to be the cut threads in my work. The shadows at the table. The absence that speaks louder than presence. Please, my mother was crying now. Let us make it right. We'll come to the exhibition. You'll come because it's the Met. Because it's prestigious. Because you can brag to your friends. Not because it's my work. That's not true. Name one piece I've created. Just one. Silence. 5 years of work, and they couldn't name a single piece. Invisible threads, I said. That's what the Met bought. A series about family connections that fray and break. About people who share blood, but nothing else. About the threads we choose to strengthen, and those we let dissolve. I headed for the door, then stopped. Oh, and Lauren, that $50 you mocked? My lowest sale was $5,000. The highest before the Met? $45,000. Turns out finger painting can be quite lucrative when you're good at it. The last thing I heard before the door closed was my father saying, "We need to buy tickets to that exhibition." They still didn't get it. The opening night at the Met was everything teenage art student me had dreamed of. Critics, collectors, patrons of the arts mingling beneath my work. My threads, invisible made visible, stretched across pristine walls. Miranda introduced me to everyone who mattered. The artist behind the most emotionally devastating exploration of family disconnection I've seen in years. Your Thanksgiving piece, one critic said, champagne in hand. It's brutal. The empty chairs that somehow feel more occupied than the painted figures. How did you capture that? Personal experience, I said simply. Antonio was there, beaming in his rented tux. Mrs. Chun from the laundromat wore her best dress. The homeless veteran, now housed and sober, stood proudly by the piece featuring military medals. My real family. The ones who'd showed up when showing up meant cramped spaces and cheap wine, not Met galas and New York Times reviews. I'm so proud of you, Antonio said, tears in his eyes. From that scared girl making lattes to this. I always knew you were special. You showed up, I said, hugging him. That made me special. Halfway through the evening, security approached. Ms. Mansfield? There are some people at the entrance claiming to be your family. They're not on the list, but they're quite insistent. I looked across the gallery at my work. At Sunday dinners with its dissolved connections. At Thanksgiving with its shadow figures. At Blood and Water, where family trees became abstract patterns, some branches flourishing while others withered. They're not my family, I said. My family is already here. Security nodded and left. 10 minutes later, my phone exploded with texts. I turned it off. The exhibition was a massive success. Every piece sold. Commissions poured in. The Times called it a searing indictment of modern family dysfunction. Art News said I was the voice of a generation raised on obligation rather than connection. But my favorite review came from a blog post by a woman who'd seen the exhibition with her estranged daughter. They'd stood before invisible threads and cried together, then went for coffee. First time they'd talked in years. Art should disturb the comfortable, she wrote, and comfort the disturbed. Mansfield does both. 6 months later, I was preparing for my European exhibition when a package arrived. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting. Inside were photos I'd never seen. Me, age 5, painting at the kitchen table. Age 8, showing off a crayon drawing. Age 12, at an art camp they'd saved for months to afford. Before the pressure to be practical. Before art became frivolous. Before threads began to fray. A note was tucked between the photos. We were proud once. We got lost. Your success isn't what makes you special. It's what you saw that we couldn't. The threads we cut. The connections we broke. We see them now in every review, every piece. We're the shadows at your table. We earned that absence. It wasn't an apology. Not really. But it was acknowledgement. I painted those photos into my new series. Before the cut, I called it. Moments when threads were strong, before expectations severed connection. It was my most vulnerable work yet. The opening was in Paris. This time, when security told me my family was at the door, I said, "Give them standing room." In the back. They came. They stood. They saw. And maybe, just maybe, we began to weave new threads. Fragile ones. Different from before. Built on truth rather than obligation, on seeing rather than expecting. But that's another story. Another series. Another chance to make the invisible visible. The Met acquisition changed my life, yes. but it didn't make me an artist. I became an artist the moment I chose to honor my vision over their voices. The moment I decided that their absence was survivable, but my absence from my own life was not. $1.4 million is nice. But the thread connecting me to my truth? Priceless. And that's something no family dinner, no matter how explosive, could ever cut. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.